If you look at the modern Middle East today, you see a landscape defined by bitter, relentless conflict and deep geopolitical divides. But to truly understand how the world arrived at this tragic point, we have to look past the modern headlines and uncover a massive, undeniable historical pattern that played out over an entire millennium. It is one of the most profound and heartbreaking ironies in human history. For hundreds of years, the Western world engaged in a systematic campaign of persecution, repeatedly expelling the Jewish people from their lands under the false pretext of protecting their local Christian populations. Yet every single time the heavy iron doors of Europe slammed shut, it was the Islamic world, the Arabs and the Turks of the Ottoman Empire, who stood as their ultimate, unwavering shield. The history of Europe is scarred by this dark, relentless cycle of state-sponsored fanaticism and royal greed. These expulsions were not isolated accidents, they were deliberate government policies. We do not have to guess how this operated. It was documented as it happened by the 12th century historian Rigord in his primary chronicle, the Gesta Philippi Augusti. According to Rigord's records, in the year 1182, King Philip Augustus of France ordered all Jews to be arrested in their synagogues on a Saturday. Under the guise of protecting his Christian subjects, his true motive was purely financial. He stripped the Jewish community of their wealth, demolished their homes in Paris to build a local market, and expelled them to enrich the French crown. When the kingdom needed more money decades later, they were invited back, only to be extorted and expelled again. By 1394, King Charles VI ordered their final devastating expulsion from France. This cruelty was perfectly mirrored across the English Channel. If you walk into the National Archives of the United Kingdom today, you can read the exact royal records of King Edward I. The archives prove that in the late 13th century, Edward faced a massive financial crisis and needed a tax grant from Parliament to fund his endless wars with France. The political price Parliament demanded for this money was the complete removal of the Jewish population. On July 18, 1290, Edward issued the Edict of Expulsion. Over 3,000 men, women, and children were forced to abandon their homes and cross the dangerous English Channel, with some treacherous sea captains deliberately drowning them on the mudflats. The British state successfully traded human lives for a tax grant of £116,000, and the ban on their return lasted for over 350 years. As the centuries progressed, the justification for these expulsions became even more violent. In Austria, the persecution reached terrifying new lows. As documented in the surviving medieval Austrian chronicles, Duke Albert V needed immense funds for his crusades in 1421. To confiscate their wealth, he allowed a fabricated religious rumor to spread, accusing a wealthy Jew of desecrating a Christian holy wafer. Using this to protect the local faith, the Duke ordered the entire community imprisoned. On March 12, 1421, over 200 survivors were led to a pasture and burned alive. In a chilling display of historical erasure, the stones from their destroyed synagogue were literally recycled to build a new faculty building for the University of Vienna. The ultimate catastrophe, however, arrived in 1492. For over 1,000 years, Jews had lived in the Iberian Peninsula, experiencing a brilliant golden age under Muslim Moorish rule, where they thrived alongside Muslims and Christians. But as the Spanish Catholic conquest overtook the region, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella signed the infamous Alhambra Decree. As the surviving royal edicts show, every single Jewish family was given just 4 months to either convert to Catholicism, face the terrifying torture of the Inquisition, or leave Spain forever, abandoning everything they had built over a millennium. Shortly after, Portugal followed suit with brutal forced conversions. Time and time again, the West cast them out as outcasts. But as hundreds of thousands of refugees fled the fires of Christian Europe with nowhere to go, the Islamic Caliphate stepped on the right side of history. Sitting on the throne in Istanbul, the great Ottoman Sultan Bayezid II watched the Spanish expulsion with absolute bewilderment. We know his exact reaction because it was recorded by the 16th century Jewish historian and rabbi Eliyahu Kapseli in his famous chronicle Seder Eliyahu Zuta. Kapseli documented how the Sultan openly mocked the intellect of the Spanish monarch, declaring to his courtiers, "You venture to call Ferdinand a wise ruler, he who has impoverished his own country and enriched mine." The Sultan did not just offer empty words of sympathy, he initiated one of the greatest state-sponsored rescue missions in human history. As the renowned Princeton historian Bernard Lewis details in his definitive academic book, The Jews of Islam, Bayezid II dispatched the Ottoman Imperial Navy, commanded by the legendary Admiral Kemal Reis, directly to the shores of Spain. Their explicit mission was to safely evacuate the fleeing refugees and bring them to the heart of the Islamic world. The Sultan sent formal imperial edicts to all his provincial governors with a strict, unbreakable command. The refugees were to be welcomed with open arms, and any Ottoman official who refused them entry or treated them with hostility would face the death penalty. The Ottoman Empire, ruled by the Turks and heavily populated by Arabs, became the ultimate sanctuary. Under Islamic law, the refugees were guaranteed their right to life, property, and religious freedom. They were granted Ottoman citizenship and settled in major cities like Istanbul, Izmir, and Salonika. For over 400 years, they thrived, bringing immense knowledge, printing presses, and medical expertise to the empire, living side by side in peace with their Muslim neighbors. This brings us to the devastating, haunting reality of the modern era. Following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire after World War I, the 20th century saw the aggressive introduction of Western colonialism, fierce ethnic nationalism, and the catastrophic aftermath of Europe's ultimate crime, the Holocaust. These modern, imported political forces completely shattered centuries of peaceful coexistence. Today, the lands that once served as the ultimate safe haven are torn apart by war. In a tragic geopolitical reversal, the descendants of the very people who were repeatedly rescued by Ottoman fleets are now locked in a relentless, devastating conflict with the descendants of the Arabs and Turks who once offered them unconditional refuge. The historical memory has been entirely inverted. The West, which spent a millennium kicking them out of their lands, now watches as the very people who opened their borders when the rest of the world offered annihilation are treated as eternal enemies. It's a stark reminder of how the politics of modern nationalism can completely erase a millennium of sanctuary, making the world forget who actually stood as the protectors when the darkest chapters of history were being written. If you found this eye-opening and want to uncover more verified truths about our past, please make sure to like the video and subscribe.